conectados aquí a través de Zoom y a quienes nos acompañan a través de Facebook a este segundo Congreso Internacional Virtual de Research on Language Teaching and Learning a Post-Pandemic Era. Entonces, el día de hoy, en este momento, tenemos al maestro Gustavo Sebastián Rodas Hernández, quien nos estará presentando Local and Global Context in EFL Classes in Public Schools, Recognizing Reality. Vamos a tener 20 minutos de presentación y posteriormente vamos a tener 10 minutos de preguntas. Si alguien durante la presentación gusta ir poniendo sus preguntas en el chat, aquí las voy a ir recopilando para al final pues hacérselas al maestro. Y si quieren participar de manera personal, nada más les pediría que al final pues pongan su reacción ahí de levantar la manita para entonces ir considerando y otorgando los espacios de participación. Entonces, no sé, maestro, ¿estamos listos?
Sí, maestro, adelante.
Adelante, entonces le cedemos la palabra al maestro Gustavo Sebastián Rodas Hernández.
Okay, well, thank you very much for being here, everybody. I really appreciate that you have decided to join us today in this important Congress. So today I'm going to present my research that is entitled Local and Global Context in the EFL Classes in Public School, Recognizing Reality. So the first thing that I'm going to show you, it is a question concerned with the way that we teach our classes. And I would like you, for the audience, to keep this question in mind because I'm going to recall it just before finishing. And that is, what kind of content do you teach in your classroom? You don't need to answer right now, but you can start adding your comments through the chat, and then we can revisit that question later on. So now I have mentioned that, I'm going to show you the outline for my presentation, and I'm going to start first of all with the motivation, some research questions that guided my research, the key concepts in literature, the methodology, the data analysis, some findings, and the conclusion. So to begin with, first of all, this research started, first of all, with a critical incident when I was a trainee teacher. So a long time ago, well, not a long time ago, but I have always liked to help teachers and students to go through the language. And then I realized about the current educational situation in my context. So at that moment, it was Chiapas. But then afterwards, I started working in Guanajuato. So I felt triggered about how English is being taught. So since I finished my MA, I decided to continue exploring the same perspective, but now in a different context. And well, research questions that led my study, they were the next one, like number one, how is local and global content presented in the activities applied in the EFL classes by the teachers and trainee teachers as well. The second one is, what are the teachers and trainee teachers' perceptions about the content in the materials used in the EFL classroom too? So when I was exploring these questions, I had to visit some literature, and the main themes that arose and they helped me to structure my theoretical framework, they were like mainly three, which were the Mexican public education and the EFL. So we have some authors such as Davis, Moraga, Romero, and Sayer, who presented very interesting perspective and research concern about how EFL is approached in Mexico. Plus, moving to a more specific and narrow theme, it was the educational system and EFL as well. But now the context was between Chiapas and Guanajuato. And for the case of Chiapas, there were some authors such as Chang Nakamura, Santiago Hernandez, and Grajales, Pacheco Mendez, and us. And from the side of Guanajuato, there was like some studies in the center of Mexico, which were held by Pauline Moore. We also have from Hood and some other researchers from the Universidad de Guanajuato, as Lengeling and Crawford as well. But now moving a little bit more specific, it was about materials used in the EFL classroom as well. And definitely it has to be presented like Little John, Richard, and Tomlinson, just to mention some of them. Now, the methodology that I followed to conduct this study, it started with a qualitative approach. We have some examples based in Dornier and Jean, but now I decided to move to the case study. To be more specific, I found very interesting, according to Steak and Jean, the intrinsic case study. And some of you may ask, what's the difference between a case study, a regular case study, and an intrinsic one? Well, according to the literature, it says like the intrinsic case study involves the researcher as part of the study and plus a willing desire to contribute about the context where the research is going to take place. So that's the reason that I decided to move to this case study, because first of all, I would like to consider my background, my critical incident that I already mentioned, plus the case study that is the EFL. And well, about the data collection techniques, I held 4 different ones, which were observation notes, interview with teachers, and focus group with trainee teachers and students, and finally a teacher's log. Well, just to explain a little bit more, the context and the participants, this study started like 3 years ago in a secondary school in Chiapas, where English classes were 3 a week, and each one of them, they took 50 minutes. And for that moment, I just had the participants, 2 English teachers, and 15 secondary school students. However, once I finished DMA, I decided to continue exploring the same field, but now in a normal school where I had the chance to work with 20 trainee teachers who are students who are going to be future English teachers. And talking about the English classes, they were like 3 times a week, but the difference, it was like the classes were about 2 hours per week. And now for preparing the data for the analysis, all the data was designed, well, was like gathered through manual transcription process. And then after analyzing, I realized some emerging themes that I'm going to present you, and that's going to be like the core of my presentation. And they were like 3 main, which were about the federal expectations based on the material and program, in that case, the PRONI, the students' reality in the classroom, and adapting and creating the materials for the EFL class. I'm going to start with the first one, and it's about expectations. So based on the interviews and the focus group, I realized like most participants agree with some segments that, I mean, if you have been teaching English in Mexico, you can realize like the linguistic level of competence that is presented in the material differs a lot with the student's level per se. In this case, one of the participants mentioned like the linguistic level, it was unsuitable for their students because they didn't have like a previous knowledge about it. Just to recall you a little, according to the PRONI, when the students arrive to the secondary school, they are in the cycle number 4, which means like most of them supposedly they have studied the language for about 9 years. 9 years because 3 should be like held in kindergarten plus 6 more like in elementary school. So according to that, the students should have about a B1 level once they enter to secondary school. That's the reason why the material, it is suitable maybe for students with that level, but not for our institutions in Mexico. I made the comparison between Guanajuato and Chiapas, and they were like kind of similar. Also, it was from the south and the center. The material contained the same level. Another important aspect mentioned in this part, in this theme, it was like the kind of examples were related to the inner circle countries. So once more here we have like incongruency with the kind of content that is presented, because the reality like some students have differs too much from the ones in the book. So in the case of Chiapas, there were aspects about traveling to the airport or visiting different cultures. They are not like interested in that. They don't feel like a connection with the material because the examples were not like suitable for them. Some of you may consider like teaching English is teaching culture as well, and that is correct in fact. However, we don't need to forget like base learning that needs to provide some contextualization of the context to engage our students. On the other side, some students based in the focus group, they agreed with the things like teachers mentioned before. Like they sometimes just have the book, they just open and they don't understand anything at all. But now we're going to move a little bit more about the students' reality in the classroom. And that is to consider, first of all, which are the kind of students that we have in our classes. In the case of Chiapas, some of the students who were in the secondary school, they came from rural institutions. So this means like urbanization, cities, that's completely out of their place context. So they are just more acquainted to live on the suburbs. So they came from little towns. Some others were from a multi-grade institution, such as in the case of CONAFE. And some others, they came or they received special attention because they were from the USAI. For the people in Mexico, CONAFE, it's like different rural institutions where there is a teacher who teaches a whole community in the school. It is a multigrado school. And in the case of USAI, those are for students who have special needs in their teaching. And in addition, there are also students who were like in a completely disconnection with the language. So this means like they have no previous knowledge about the use of English. And moreover, I would like to also add, like one of the teachers mentioned, this is in the case of Guanajuato as well, just like it happened before. Like some of the information like they received through their questions, it was like sometimes even though they live in the center of the country, they do not travel so often. So the limitation with the vocabulary or the cases that are presented in the materials, it feels like misconnected. And plus, and finally for this aspect, it is about like, this is from a Chiapas student. It says like they don't feel attracted because they are not acquainted about the other cities around. Okay, so this, what does it mean? First of all, reflects reality in the students. It reflects how our job as teachers sometimes is to impose what the material says to follow. And sometimes we can do different things, such as the things like teachers working here, like is adapting and creating the material. Because the situations that the participants, the teacher participants in the interviews and the focus group, they tried to avoid a little the use of the textbook. So they decided to design their own material, in this case, like memory, puzzles, activities that they are not so linguistically demanding for the students. Some others presented structures or some kind of methodology, which was easiness, adaptability, and the student's context as well. But on the other hand, the students mentioned like they feel like engaged working through these conditions because they like to feel like taken into account. They like to talk about the things they do, the food they prefer, and about their favorite sports per se, as the participant mentioned. And moreover, some other teachers likes to design or they provide like open activities in a controlled space, which is like describe character from their own students' interest. And here we come with an unexpected finding. And at the beginning, this says global and local. So at the beginning of this research, I stipulated, or I was like expecting like local was better than global. And once I conducted this research, I realized like the right answer, it is none of them. What it should be taught should be like a local aspects. So, and here we have some comments that support my ideas. In this case, these are like the students or the participants' voice, which mentioned like the textbooks in the first hand, it should be like focused, like in other places, talking about global aspects, but it should always to be considered aspects about themselves. On the other hand, they would like to know how to speak English like out of the city, maybe like in a inner circle country or somewhere else where English is spoken. But they will also like to have discussions about how how to speak English, but using like their main context. Like this student mentioned, like lo que traiga parte del video para poder aprender lo que se vive aquí. So this is like the aquí refers to the personal context of the student. And also about the design of the textbook. They are aware about that they are learning English, so they cannot like expect a full Spanish book, but they find like a division, like 50-50, because they want to be focused on them, but also they want to be exploring what is out of the world. And here we have another comment. like it mentioned, like it should have two things as well. Like they would like to go, they go to the store and buy some things and do this task in English, and also they want to travel abroad, and therefore they need the language as well. And well, here are some examples. As I told you before, one of the participants, the teachers, asked like to describe their favorite character. And here we have some examples. Here at the top, we can see Freddie Mercury, which might be like a representation from a global example from the culture out of Mexico. On the other hand, we have Eugenio Derbez, which is a very well-known Mexican actor that reflects the local identity the students have. But now here's like the twist that I would like to add, because I included some students from the Normal, future English teachers, and I interviewed them and I asked them which kind of material they tend to do. So here, because they found the same difficulties to design the material, it was to create their own. So as we can see, because some institutions, some secondary schools in Guanajuato, they do not count with the technological resources to provide like presentations through PowerPoint or with the use of internet or some other activities. They created their own material as well. They have explanation and some examples about the culture as well. And here in this memory game, they have words both in English and Spanish, because they consider like translanguaging in the classroom is also important to make students feel comfortable and to provide like a more open classroom for speaking and communication as well. So, because I don't want to focus, well, I would like to have some feedback from the audience. And this is the summary of findings. And first of all, English teachers and trainee teachers, they both try to present some more adapted activities in the classroom based on the sociocultural background. And they decided to leave like the global content presented mostly on the textbook. So both participants, either in Chiapas and in Guanajuato, they consider like it's important to talk about culture, but they just limit that part to the textbook. And secondly, teacher and trainee teachers, they perceive like the material like unsuitable, even with a high linguistic level contrasted to what the students' real level have. Third, the students perceive the content in the material like challenging and difficult, but some comments argue or reaffirms the idea that they like to feel challenged. And if we move to the scaffolding process, it is also important to consider like the material should be not so easy, but not so difficult as well. But they should be like a balance in between to make like the acquisition go through that. And also they would like to have examples based on their own context. And number four, and the last one, it is there is still a lack of awareness of such terms during students' training process. During the interview, I asked my participants in the Escuela Normal to tell me what is global or what is local for them. And there was some misconception about it because they were not familiar with these aspects. Also, they are almost in the final year. They are just like a year to finish their BA. So this study can help them to like raise awareness about the kind of content that is taught. Some contributions from this study, it will be the adaptation for similar research in other regions in Mexico. So I have confirmed, like either in Guanajuato and in Chiapas, center and south of Mexico, they share the same difficulties. Well, not the same, but some of them are kind of similar. And there is teacher training courses that can encourage students to move to this side, to have local examples. And finally, that I'm getting realized about it, it is like ELT in public education in Mexico. It is now based on the Nueva Escuela Mexicana. So we're talking about a holistic approach. We're talking about transdisciplinary aspects. So here we are invited to provide content and examples and activities and projects that are student-centered. So the study can help me out just to provide more support and guidance to the teachers of future English teachers who are going to start working with this new educational model in Mexico. Some implications, I will say like there is a balance of local and global content in the English classroom to be negotiated between teachers and students. 2 weeks ago, I have the chance to have a short talk with Mario Lopez Gopar, And in his presentation, he mentioned about to giving students voice. Most research tend to focus to work on students, but not with the students, and to give them a voice to discuss and negotiate the kind of teaching that they want to. It should be a good idea because we as teachers, we can save some times in the decision-making process when we're planning. Why should we always teach what we consider always the best? But when we have 20, 30, 50 students in our classroom, why don't give them the voice to decide what is important for them, what is like really meaningful during their learning process? And well, re-answering the first question when we started about the content of teaching that you teach in your classroom, if you answer local or contextual content, that's amazing. If you consider or if you are more focused talking about global content, talking about different cultures out of Mexico, that's also great. But what do you think about having this balance? And even more important, do not be afraid of breaking the rules in our schools to make a real change, at least in the EFL classes here in Mexico. And well, these are my final references. And thank you very much for your time. This is my email. If you have any questions, we can be in touch through here. And I think we're just in time, right, Maestra Marcela?
Yeah, yes. Right. Thank you, Professor Gustavo. So now we have some minutes for questions. Do you have any question you want to ask to Professor? If you want to write them or if you want to ask directly, feel free to do it. No? Okay, we have a comment. Thank you for a great presentation. I would like to ask, based on your research, what recommendations can you give for teacher training programs, and what can we begin to do in the classroom with the pre-service EFL teachers before they go out into the field?
Thank you very much, Maestra, and I really appreciate your question and your comment, Professor Isaac. And well, concerning the first question, first of all, I will invite teachers to teacher training programs to consider and give voice to students. Sometimes we have this idea about colonizing the language. So sometimes we are like just through the program because we consider like it comes from Cambridge. So we have to follow that. But the context in Cambridge and in Europe is very different from Mexico. So I will like to start giving voice to highlight and shed light on the importance of our students, our context. I know that we cannot like design our own textbooks in each district, state in Mexico, but start to giving and do not be afraid to broke the book, to broke our syllabus will be a good beginning. Because I mean, even though we have our planning, we depend on our students. So why do not give them the voice to start designing activities they want? Because we can have like this rupture about yes, but the students maybe they are not aware about how they learn the language because they do not have enough knowledge. But at the end, they're learning, and they like to learn the things they like, not the things that we impose. And we were students a long time ago. And we cannot recall the class that we didn't like it, but we can recall our favorite memories with that teacher, even though we're not like focusing on a specific grammar aspect. And concerning the second question, a piece of advice for pre-service teachers is to not be afraid, to start exploring. Nowadays, the Nueva Escuela Mexicana, it is kind of chaotic in public education because there is six transdisciplinarity aspects, like to start designing projects. But I think it's a very good idea to put the language in practice. The students feel like, okay, I'm going to use like Spanish, I'm going to design a comic for the Spanish class, but I can start doing the phrases based also in English. And also I can start presenting the material or to start making like some ads, some advertisement in my community to make an impact in both languages. And so the first thing it will be for the pre-service English teacher to not to be afraid. And secondly, to break the paradigm about believe that we as teachers, we know what is best for our students, but to open not just our brains and our planning, but our hearts as well, to provide a better environment for our future students.
Okay, thank you so much. And we have some other comments. Muy interesante tema, terrific, amazing, congratulations, and great answer, and a thank you for you. Okay, if we don't have more questions, I don't know if the next presenter is ready. We have to Brian Felipe Ibañez Niño and Karen Tatiana Torres with fostering social responsibility and inclusion, empowering language learners through project-based learning and handmade painting at Language Academy. Sería nuestro siguiente.
Yes, teacher, that's us.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Well, actually, I'm going to introduce myself very quickly. I'm Brian. I'm not sure, Karen, are you there? Can you hear me?
We can wait for a few minutes if you need it. I don't know where she is.
I think she's there. Yeah, I think she was talking.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so give me a second. I'm going to share my screen.
Well, actually, in the meantime, I would like to, well, first say a big hi to everyone. And of course, like say thanks because all of you are attending this conversation. I'm going to introduce ourselves very quickly. So like I said before, I'm Brian Felipe Ibañez Niño, and my partner right here, she's Karen Tatiana Torres. And both of us are from Colombia, so it's kind of really interesting to be here and within this presentation, and of course, to share all our research project that we have been working on during all these years. So yeah. Okay, yeah, I think we can see the screen.
Okay. Can you see me? Yes.
Yeah, Karen, can you please make it like bigger to expand the screen?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah, that's better. So, well, we're a little bit sorry about the upper part of the presentation, and this is called Fostering Social Responsibility and Inclusion, Empowering Language Learners Through Project-Based Learning and Handmade Painting at a Language Academy. Once again, well, you can see our names right here. I'm Brian Felipe Niño, my partner Karen Tatiana Torres Hernandez, and our research tutor, that is Adriana Marcela Gomez Bermudez, but she's not here today. Can we please move on to the next one? Karen, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and just to give you a little bit of context about our profile, well, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Brian, like I said before. I'm currently a bachelor degree student at Uniminuto, that's one university from here, Bogota, Colombia. And I'm currently in my 9th semester, the bachelor major degree in foreign languages. And when here, our tutor, she's, well, quite an experienced university professor, passionate about education, focused on the importance of the role of teachers and the transformation they can make in their students' life. So she hears a little bit more about her profile, if that's the case, and you want to read. And Karen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, my name is Karen Tatiana Torres Hernandez, and also I am from Colombia. I am a bachelor's degree student in foreign language with emphasis in English from the Uniminuto University. Yes, so we can start.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, before getting started with our project, we would like to carry out like a quick activity for the people who are attending this event. And if you can help us out, we would really appreciate it. We're gonna try something quite quickly before we start like showing you the information or pretty much the process we have had during all this time. And it's about getting out a piece of paper and try to draw or paint something that can remind you about your childhood. So please, everyone here, if you can, we're gonna take 1 minute to take a piece of paper and draw something quite quickly about whatever that can remind you about your childhood, okay? And then we're gonna open up our cameras, and if you can help us out, we would like to see your drawings, to see your, yeah, pretty much your masterpieces, and then we could have some conversation on it. But let's try it like something quite quickly. So we're gonna take now 1 minute. Okay, so for those who are currently drawing and if you're following up the activity with us, I would like to invite you to turn on your cameras so we can see who exactly are the ones who are making participation of this short activity. Okay. Okay, I believe time is up. I'm not sure if anyone was able to make the drawing. So if you can please show it to us. If you want, you can take a photo of it and send it through the chat, or if you prefer, you can turn on your cameras. Okay, Yolanda, I can see it. Can you please try to explain to me what you exactly drew over there? Like, yeah, why exactly you drew it?
Well, hi. My first memory of my childhood, I think it's me listening to my dad's whistle as he entered the house. I was so happy just listening to it, him through a veranda, but I was so little. I was so young. I don't know. But that's my first memory or the farthest I can remember.
Okay, that is so good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Okay, do I have someone else who would like to show his or her drawing? I'm just moving on. Okay, so well, actually, I think we can move on in order to not to take more time of what we are allowed to. The idea of this short activity is just to give you like kind of an overview of what exactly our project is going to be about or what it's already about, but we're going to be telling you. The idea of it is like basically through the drawing that you guys are supposed to do or were supposed to do in the meantime that we were developing the activity is because as soon as you start thinking about your childhood, then when you need to explain it, then you will have to use quite a very famous past tense that is the simple past tense, sorry. And in that order of ideas, well, you were pretty much able to use your verb past verb, sorry. And so, yeah, pretty much learn a little bit about the use of that tense. Let's move on to the statement of the problem. So,
Okay, so where? According to the Brian said before, we focus in how we can teach English through art. And in this case was with example with the past tense. So the statement of the problem that we can see in our project was the disinterest of the students in learning English as a second language with traditional method. Use it from a language academic that we work in this moment. So in general, students prefer to learn foreign language through online courses or sometimes in academies. So for this reason, we identify these kind of problems.
yeah. So can you move on to the next one, please? Okay, so here we have our research question in which, well, pretty much important before we start talking about this, we need to give you some context. My partner already mentioned before that both of us are current teacher trainees, but we are also trying to like work already in the teaching field. That in this case, it's a language academy. That's the place where actually I am right now. That's my working place. And since we started working here, we identified kind of a problem within the teaching method that is applied. And so we decided to come up with this project. Okay, so the research question goes by how can students of the A2 level get better at their creative and English skills through the use of project-based learning in handmade painting. So in this case, we're gonna be explaining later on the reason why we decided to choose the A2 very specific population as well as the PBL, that in this case, project-based learning. So yeah, let's move on.
Okay, so other thing that we to be account for this kind of population is we need that the students have basis for teach with with this new method that we implement in the classes. So, okay, so for the classification, taking into account the research importance and the information gotten, we can focus in these 7 steps. That the first is enhancing learning outcomes. This is focused from, like Brian said before, project-based learning that is a proven educational approach that offers active and experiences and experimental learning by integrating the handmade painting in this kind of project. The second is promoting social responsibility. So one of the major advantages of the project work is that makes that the school more like real life. So we focus that this kind of project can help for the students to participate more in the social skills and helps our communities to express in a creative way their ideas. So we consider this very important. The third is fostering inclusivity and diversity. So the language learning environments often consist of students from diverse backgrounds. So this project emphasis on handmade painting would allow students to express their perspectives and cultural identities that we can improve for them. The next is developing soft skills. For this, we think that these skills are vital for success of modern workforce, and will equip language learners with the tools that they need to excel them for the academical and professional life. So this is important. The next is the strengthening community engagement that through project-based learning activities, our language academic will establish stronger ties with the local community and their social organizations. So we can do that this project that address real-world uses that can be the bridge to the traditional method, like something innovative for them. And the sixth is showcasing the student talent. Okay, so for this part, we focus in handmade painting that the projects will offer students a platform to showcase their creativity and artistic skills, to through like through like a public exhibitions and events that we can do for them. Finally, the long-term impact that is to in a sense of social responsibility and inclusion in our students. That project has to create our impact in this case the language academy that we work, and we we want to that these community projects promote the social responsibility for the futures.
Okay. So, well, yes, because it's loading. Okay, so to give you a little bit more background, I'm gonna explain right now, right, exactly the reason why we decided to work with A2 level. So since we are making sure that, I mean, the idea with the project was to start applying, first of all, a primer in which we were able to show all of the activities and well-planned activities with very specified lesson plan and well stages of a class, including a warm-up presentation, like a grade practice, and well those stages of a lesson plan. We wanted to make sure that like students had a basic level in which they were able to understand most of the like topics that are given in A1 level, and then with it we could start working with an A2 level. So here in the academy, we are used to working with all different types of populations. So we can have either kids or young teenagers, or we can also have like adults. And in that order of ideas, for us, it was a little bit like complicated or a little bit difficult to choose like a very specific age. And so we decided to work with people from 12 to 30 years old. So our requirement was mainly that they were able to know the basics of an A2 level, starting up with the tenses and of course most of the topics that are supposed to be learned in that very specific level. So in addition to this, it was very important to make sure that, well, mainly the activities that we were planning for the project were different and innovative, as my partner already mentioned before, since they are so used to a very direct method, which a direct method is just based on having a class that is called a model. So in this model, they are supposed to learn, I don't know, for instance, present perfect simple, and so then they have to go to a test with a homework, and then with the test, they are just assessed with several questions. They are revised also like a homework that they have to develop right before getting started with the test, and then they can move on to the next models. So, well, very much students got so used to it that they forgot about having interaction, having like that sense of creativity, and that's what they were missing a lot during their classes. And what we discovered they had a problem with, because every time we had like an activity or a workshop or something different, they were just so closed, and they weren't on their comfort zone, that they didn't want to show like that part creative from them. So yeah, we decided to start up with these handmade painting activities with PBL. I'm going to explain later on the reason why PBL, but yeah. And also we wanted to make sure that this project was not only for like students or young teacher trainees as we are, but also for teachers, for example, our coworkers who are in here, and they are also so used to this direct method, so they could start also applying this kind of activities and have like a bigger and meaningful influence within students. So yeah, that's part of our background. It's quite important to mention that most of the population that we have here, it's mainly because they are, I mean, they don't belong to a very specific group in which English is demanded for them, but most of them are here because they actually want to learn how to speak a foreign language. In this case, we're talking about English. We're also like trying to see if this project could also work with third language acquisition, such as it is with the case in French. For example, in my case, I also give French in here. So yeah, for now we did it with English, and that's what we are working on right now. So yeah, let's continue.
Okay, so in this case, we have the general objective and the specific objectives that we choose or we identify. So the first, the general, is to generate an improvement in communicative and creative skills through a project of steps. In this case, we have a kind of portfolio that have the different classes at the steps that we can do or implement in the classes, the activities, the objectives, and the things that we are going to implement in the classes. For the specific objectives, we have to restate the importance of the project through probing questions and their expectations over some surveys. To illustrate step by step what the project is about through information with a whole presentation and innovate process. And to gather information based of their experience with the project and their learning through an interview. So we are going to see some more information about these objectives.
Okay, give me a sec because it's loading. Okay, so in regards with, I mean, before moving on with the objectives and pretty much our data collection tools, we wanted to make sure to establish the reason why of some very specific concepts, such as the first and probably the most important one, PBL or project-based learning. I assume most of you are already related to project-based learning. In here, well, I'm going to Nguyen, who emphasizes that learning activities that are learner-centered and usually integrated with real-world concerns, which means project-based learning has given us the chance to associate most of the activities with like real problems that are actually happening within like a real context, in which whether the students are not able to be creative, then they will have like future uh, concerns. And yeah, that's the idea with the project. We also decided to choose project-based learning because it's the type of preferred approach that allows us to come up with a product, with a project that goes step by step within a very specified lapse of time, and then right after that we can have like a working product or a working result. In this case, we are talking about the results or the improvement, the enhancement that we get with the students communicative language skills. So yeah, that's the reason why we decided to go with project-based learning. Also, we consider that PBL allows us to suite the project based know, but the handmade painted activities, because this is a whole process. And since we are looking forward to provide the students with different types of activities, then we require some time and specify the steps and instructions that PBL allows us to create. So yeah, that's the first reason of PBL project-based learning.
Okay. Secondly, teaching is a creative and memorial and visual way we can generate positive results in our students now. So for this reason, teaching through art is important for us, because that is the reason that we can find the visual and artistic learning in language teaching can be used to develop the linguistic skills, such as narration, descriptions, etc. So this can help to the students to effectively promote the constructive use. Science allow the students interact for the different experience and topics that they are going to learn. So we think that the student can express their ideas and thoughts according or maybe through the art for the understand new concepts in a creative way. So for us, we focus in this in this part that say that language and art can complement and help each other, because it's true, we can promote the other forms to teach English in a different ways, in a innovative ways that we can focus more on in our students and their skills.
Okay, so then we have quite an important one, innovation in the classroom, in which we mainly put this one in here because we wanted to make sure that most of the activities implemented into the primer was not only offered by us, but also students could come up with their own activities. So for example, even though we were promoting handmade painting, most of the students were not related to this kind of art. And they were like, okay, but not really into painting, I'm not really into drawing, so well, I would like to try something else. Then we were open to hearing their ideas, what exactly they had to offer, if they wanted to show like, I don't know, somehow a different artistical style, then they could sing, or for instance, if they wanted to dance, it was more than acceptable for us. We were open to do it as long as we were also like able to stick to the project, which was the main idea. In that very specific case, we also look for some like strategies that allows the students to get engaged within this methodology that we are looking forward to provide to students and teachers. And so innovation in the classroom also was one of the key concepts that we took in mind, because some students are forgetting about it, and so some students are just sticking to a traditional way to do things, not only into their learning, but also when it comes to a task, or even if we're talking about job terms. So they are just going to do it quite traditional, not putting that sense of emotion or at least innovation, which is what currently many like big enterprises and companies are looking forward to have from their workers. So yeah, that's why we wanted to change that chip in their minds and just to start doing something different, something innovative that, well, could awake their innovation. So yeah.
Okay, the next and is main characteristic of our project is painting as a learning style. Why? Because painting is one of the most famous ways to express our ideas or emotions, etc. So why don't find the benefits for the art and the teaching? So for this, the creative and improving various skills can help for the emotional, not just in the academical way. We can focus in the emotional, in the creative way for the students for a future when they are going to looking for a job. So this can be helpful for them. So for this, we recognize that painting as learning styles is a process that requires time and meaningful results will not be proved fastly. So our idea is to make sure that the students learn with this process, with the painting. This is the principal idea for us.
Okay, I think we can. It's loading for me. Okay, so talking a little bit more in depth about our research design, we wanted to go right away with action research. Well, pretty much the reason of this one is because, well, just to define quite quickly, action research as the type of research that allows us to see like a current problem within a very specific population, try to look for a solution and implement it with that sense of innovation. So yeah, action research is the first one. Can you please move on to the next one, Karen?
Yes, sorry. Yeah.
Don't worry.
Okay, so
Just to let
for
you know
this,
that we have only 8 minutes
okay, so for
questions.
okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
You want to close your...
Yeah, thank you. So, well, yeah, pretty much talking in depth about this part, about the data analysis, we wanted to come up with some data collection instruments that belong to the quantitative and qualitative parts, such as, well, we used surveys, pre-test, post-test, interviews, observations, and some students' artifacts. Well, in this part, you're going to see a little bit about our students. Can you please come back?
These are the activities that we implement in the classes for them. So in this kind of activities, Brian implement for the emotions, something like that. In classes, I implement for the adjectives, create the monsters and different things. So we have this evidence.
Thank you so much. Can you please introduce yourself? Thank you. So I'm going to ask you.
Okay, so this is a little interview between the teacher Brian and his student. Then he said a lot of information how he feels with this implementation and this new methodology for the classes. And this is the pre-test and post-tests that the teacher Brian implement in their students.
Yeah, it is quite important to complement with that students had to develop this survey first, like at the beginning of the whole implementation of the project. Right after that, they had questions such as, have you ever been taught in a different way? Have you ever learned something using different, not traditional methods? Do you like learning with, I don't know, music, painting? Do you like learning with any artistical style, as well as, well, many others, in which most of the results that we got from there were positive for us. So in that order of ideas, the students have never been taught in an artistical way. The students have never tried learning like differently, and that's what allows us to continue up with the project and, of course, implementing the whole idea. So, well, Karen, would you like to talk about this part?
Okay, yes, for the conclusions, we can see that the students have a good process with our methodology. Is not just activities that we can implement just in one class. It's like we can see this more for the activities, a new methodology that we can improve for future research projects. So for this reason, we have a good results.
Okay, thank you so much, Brian and Karen. Now, for the rest of the group here, if you have any questions you want to ask them, you can write them on the chat, or if you want to ask directly, please just raise your hand on the reactions.
Yeah, in the meantime, that you think quite well about your questions, I'd like to thank all of you very much for being here, paying attention to us, and we really appreciate it. Like I said before, with teacher trainees, we're also getting started into this research world, and so it's kind of quite a good experience and quite outstanding for us. So yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, we don't have any questions. I just want to say congratulations. And you really have a very, very good topic here, because you are considering two key aspects here, that you have social responsibility and you have inclusion. And that's important, because nowadays that is something that schools need to consider really, really hard. So if we don't have any question, okay, see you in the next chat. It will be in 15 minutes. We will have a break from 12:45. It's 15 minutes. We will start again at 1 o'clock. And the next part would be implementing asynchronous peer observation to enhance reflective pre-service practice during the pandemic. It is by Maria de los Ángeles Bortagaray and Sonia Vanessa Caldera. Okay, so see you in 15 minutes.